I'll just point out first of all, I've been told to stand in this corner and not move too much and to hold this microphone very steadily so we don't get any bad sound. So if I look a bit serious in the corner, that's my reasoning for it. But yeah, first of all, I am Stephen Craft and I'm here with Anthony. We're from Pawprint Games. We spent a while trying to come up with a cool presentation title, and in the end we went for independent games development because we thought it's a bit more honest to what we do. If I flip through to the next one, I'm up there on the right and Anthony on the left. It's got some details about what we've done so far in our career, which is somewhat limited, but we've been around for getting on towards a decade now. We've worked on sort of 12 plus AAA titles. We've both come from university backgrounds, and my degree was in computer games technology in Liverpool, and Anthony done computer visualization. I'll go to the next slide. So our sort of launchpad into the games industry after university, we both worked at Sony Liverpool, although we both worked there at the same time. We never spoke to each other. We worked in completely different departments. I saw his name on a few emails and thought, you know, dodgy character. And he probably thought the same for me. The biggest game they were making there was the F1 franchise, which they made for many years. I was involved in the 2004, 2005 and the start of 2006. And Anthony worked doing the demos for the demo discs, so taking the various programs and collating them onto the disc and putting it through all the different processes. Once again, we then both moved to Traveller's Tales, and for the first year or two didn't speak to each other very much. We was both doing completely different projects there. We was there for about 5 years, and due to the nature of the company, we worked on about 10 games in that time. I've listed some of them here. The most commonly known ones are the Lego series, so Lego Star Wars, Lego Batman, Lego Indiana Jones, Lego Harry Potter, Lego Pirates of the Caribbean, Lego Lord of the Rings, and Lego. They also did the Narnia games for Lion, Witch and the Wardrobe, Prince Caspian, and also Transformers, which was probably, although one of the heaviest projects, one of the most fun ones because it was massive robots destroying the city. As well as it being cool, because we worked on lots of different games, we also worked on a lot of different platforms. So at the bottom I've listed the Sony, PSP, PS2, PS3, Microsoft 360, GameCube, Wii, PC, which was cool because before that was at university, and our university was mainly pushing PC games development, and we was quite keen to learn more about consoles, and it definitely gave us that experience. On top of that, we were kind of thrown in at the deep end, and both of us ended up working on lots of different departments and getting pulled in lots of different directions, which in some respects is crazy because you're not getting any sleep and you're learning lots of things. But at the same time, we felt after working there for 5 years, we went from not working in the games industry to kind of feeling like we could probably make a game by ourselves, probably. So one of the work dues, they gave us a free bar and we had a few drinks and said, wouldn't it be great if we made our own games? And everyone said, yeah, it would be great. So we started looking in a little bit more detail. Well, how would we do that? How would this work? And we're both programmers, so we've got some kind of technical background. So I think we're thinking numbers first. Let's look at numbers. So very quickly before we come out, I put a rough breakdown of a year's costs to run a company with 2 people working on minimum wage. And this is by no means perfect numbers. It can go up and down. But this was to give us some idea that if we're going to do this and we're going to put games out, how much money do we need to bring back from them games? So I've put the office in there, the equipment, everything else. So the total we come to for that was around £36,000, and that's based on 2 people working at minimum wage. So if it's a sort of game which you can make with 2 people, that's great. If you want to bring other people from the outside in, that's quite problematic because I've put at the bottom, it's going to be very hard to find people to work on a game with you if you're asking them to take a very low salary. But nevertheless, we thought, okay, that's what we need to do. So from that, we said, okay, do we want to spend our own money? Do we want to spend £36,000? Can we borrow it? Can we get it? And the answer at that moment in time was no, we don't feel like we want to do that. So we carried on working in our day jobs, and we said, well, we've got about 2-3 months till Christmas. Why don't we just work on something in our spare time? And at this moment in time, the App Store was just starting to take some traction. So we took some interest at looking in that. There was also the Xbox marketplace type stuff developing, so I was considering that. So we looked at the different platforms and decided in the end for iOS, which we'll talk about more, and we decided on the game that we want to make. And given that it was only 2 or 3 months until Christmas, we knew it was going to be pretty hectic, but we thought we'd go for it. And at that point we said, right, we need to really home in now, decide on the game we're going to make and start working on it. And if I can bring Anthony over now, he's going to go through the different games we've worked on. And I'm going to go to the back.
Hi. Yeah, as Steve said, August 2008, we were looking to make our own title, and we were actually initially looking at making a follow-up to a game that I made when I was at Sony, which was Frenzy. It was like an old-school shoot-'em-up, and we were going to make it for the 360, but then the iPhone, the SDK became available, and the App Store opened, and it seemed obvious to us that it was going to explode, and that was the platform that we wanted to get involved in. So Steve said we started looking at making this game, and we had this 14-week window. So we sat down and started designing this idea, and we thought, you know, touch screens, everyone's going to like this kind of Lemmings style game. So we started looking at trying to fuse Lemmings with Bill's Tomato game and come up with something quite quirky. And is that you? Right, we've got a technical problem here. So anyway, we started to... Steve, stop playing. So we started to make this game, Kami Crazy, and it was hectic. Basically, we were crunching our day jobs, and we were crunching in the evening making this game. We were crunching the weekends, and we had to sacrifice, you know, friendships, girlfriends, and all that kind of thing. We released the game just before Christmas 2008, and it went on to do quite well, but not financially. It made it to number 2 in the free charts, and unfortunately that didn't transition to paid. And back then in 2008, there was no way of monetizing a free game other than pointing at a paid version of the game. And so it quickly kind of died out over a couple of weeks, and but we were really pleased, and it was great to see the fact that we could make that kind of game and get it into those kind of positions. So it certainly opened our eyes. We ended up in the office, our day jobs, talking to the boss. I knew him quite well, fortunately, and it kind of got pushed over. It was like, you guys aren't going to do this again, are you? No, I won't do it again. And it was left at that, and it was never drawn into our contracts. Nobody took it that seriously. A couple of weeks later, started working again, and we started working on, hold on. So yes, I missed a slide here. Bad points about this were, well, actually I've talked about this, the traction. We just didn't get it, and it just didn't make the money. So it showed us how difficult it was. So we then looked at the game, we looked at the reviews, we looked at the App Store reviews, and we started to break it down, and we looked at where all the problems were with that game, and we started to come up with this game, Mystery Marines. Now, this actually became too big, and we simplified Kami Crazy into this puzzle-orientated game, where you can control these different characters, a bit kind of like Lost Vikings, if anybody knows that from back in the day. And yeah, we had like the story kind of cutscene stuff, and it was just, we took too much on really for spare time development. So we hit April 2010, still doing our day jobs, crunching in the day, working on this stuff at night and weekends. Big sacrifices with girlfriends and so on. But it was like, yeah, believe in us, you know, we'll get there in the end. So we revisited Kami Crazy based on our learnings from Kami Crazy and Mystery Marines, and spending all that time evaluating those products. And there was a game called 3D Dot Game Heroes on the 360, and it kind of seemed to work visually for us, and there was nothing like that on the iPhone. And we looked at that and thought, right, how can we take this and apply that, a similar kind of style, and evolve the original Kami Crazy game, because we knew from that release that we had quite a lot of people that were interested in it. So we looked at that style, created our own kind of styling, and started evolving Kami Crazy into Kami Retro. How do I play this, Ian? Can you? There we go. So again, this was 6 months of spare time to create this game, and it's a simple single-screen game. But you know, ideas come and go, and you know, various things get thrown away, and you know, you get tired, and things aren't heading in the right direction, and things change, and so on. So we pushed this game up to this point, and we kind of had a video not too dissimilar to this available in November of that year. And we pushed that out on Twitter, and all this time we were building our Twitter up and building off Facebook and so on, so with the view that this thing might take off. So we pushed it out on Twitter, and we immediately got interest from a publisher, which you wouldn't get interest now because everything's free to play. But back then, everyone were looking for this next big puzzle game, you know, Cut the Rope and Angry Birds. They're all kind of not too dissimilar to this. And we did things a little bit differently. It was all gesture driven, and there's still nothing quite like it on the store. So we had these two publishers, and for us, we knew from the experiences of Kami Crazy that it was difficult to make money on there. So we kind of played the two publishers off each other to get as much money as we possibly could, so we could then leave our day jobs, because we had decent jobs. So it was quite risky for us to do that. So we secured the money, and then we went to our boss and said, can we keep our jobs? We've made this game. But he was like, no, that's not going to work. So we then made the decision that it was the right time to go and do this. So we pushed on and left our jobs. We then spent another month after leaving polishing this game up even further, and trying to work closely with the publisher, and actually went on to secure quite a lot of decent press. Apple featured it. We got the Game of the Week. It's subsequently been featured since it's released. It's still featured now. It's featured in the Greatest Platformers. It's in the App Store Hall of Fame. Benchmark Games for its intuitive gestures and so on. So after releasing that, it was made for iPhone. We had to make it work on iPad. So all of the assets were all done in 3D, fortunately. We had to convert all of this stuff. And because we used our own engine, we had to evolve the engine to support, the toolchain, sorry, to support the various platforms. Fortunately, Steve had spent quite a significant amount of time pushing Android in the background as well, and obviously we all know Android, there's lots of different phones and so on, and there's various resolutions to support, so quite a lot of these things we had looked at. Still, it took us a good number of months to get the toolchain and the engine to that standard, but we're now, we then got to that position where we could release for Android, and then that made it simple to release on WebOS. They died a death pretty quickly. But you know, we got it out there and we made a bit of money on it. And we did the same for Playbook and BB10. One thing I will say is you spend a long time making a game. So if you're going to make a game, try and push it out onto as many platforms as you can. There's various tools out there to do it. There's various engines available. We went the in-house route just purely because that's our experience. We come from like low-level PS2 programming and so on, so that's what we enjoy doing as well. So it kind of works well for us because we believe we're building value into the company by doing that as well. But Kami Retro didn't make us lots of money. It gave us the good reviews, which as a company it really helped our CV. It didn't hold the chart position for so long. So you'll get the feature, but the feature will get you lots and lots of users quite quickly. But if your game doesn't get the word of mouth, and if it's got a quirky title, I mean, what's Kami Retro mean to people? It probably doesn't mean a great deal, really. So these are the things that we were evaluating after releasing that. And we were getting pushed in the free-to-play direction, which was, interesting, but it certainly kind of had its friction for us. because we were so used to the console industry and just making those kind of arcade-based games. And one thing that certainly concerned us was there were no kind of arcade-based games that were really making any money in the free-to-play market, although Jetpack Joyride released around that time, about a year or so ago. But that was one out of a number of simulation RPGs and so on. But we liked the idea as a challenge, and we looked at that and thought, what can we do with it? How can we make this free-to-play game? So we came up with Wacky Rapids, which is our own IP again. And it's kind of a fusion of, Mario Kart, SSX Tricky loosely. Just, it's just a fun game, really. Hold on. Oh, are you going to play it? Right, okay, cool. So, yeah, it's just a bit of fun. And so for this, we put together a 2-page pitch document, and we had a good CV prior to starting the company, and Kami Retro gave us that decent start to our company CV as well. So we were able to go to various companies with this, and literally it was a 2-page pitch explaining how it was going to monetize, how you were going to upgrade your rafts, upgrade your characters, buy immunities to the various weapons in the game, and present something to a publisher where they could see how they could make money. So we went and did that, and we again had 2 publishers that we could play off each other. And back then, we were trying to build a company up, so we're trying to bank money so we can make more games like this. Because ultimately, it is about having money in the bank so you can make more games. Because as soon as you don't have that, then you're getting a day job somewhere that you might not enjoy doing. So yeah, we played them off each other, took the most money, and am I onto the slides again now? Okay, so just a kind of few screens showing the game here. So like you can collect your various characters, various rafts, crazy rafts. You can be a monkey riding a peg if you like, and I think there's a famous YouTube video showing some crazy monkey on a peg. So yes, and you can Superman on the left there. It's just a bit of fun, really. So we released this on Android first, and one of the main reasons we did this is because you can release updates immediately. You don't have to wait for the 2-3 week window on the App Store to make changes. Because it was a freemium game, we needed to react quickly to the analytics. So we pushed it out in Canada and Australia. Again, there's reasons for that. They're English speaking, so whenever they review the game, we can see their feedback and gain the knowledge from that. And it's been in localized beta since May, June this year. One of the main reasons for that is we went on to secure Swashbuckler, a platformer, Paul Frank IP-based game. Which is kind of this actually came about because we went to Saban Brands that own Paul Frank with a prototype that we built a year ago. Again, that prototype didn't go to anything, but we thought it might come to something. So it was an evolution of Kami Retro. So we evolved Kami Retro into a multi-screen game, so just like a platformer really. So we took that single screen and expanded it with the view that it might become something. So we took it to them and said, hey, why not make a gesture-based Mario-style game for the platform? It's not being done, why not do it? And we liked the brand, we thought it was quirky, and they had lots of interesting characters. Steve's going to play this now. They liked it, we secured the deal with them, and we started making it in early May. And we've just finished it, and it's just been released. It's free to play, taking most of our learnings from Wacky Rapids and our time working on the Lego games as well. And we're in this process at the moment of evaluating the game, improving monetization, evolving the gameplay, and so you done, Steve? So we'll just wait for this. And I'm now going to hand over to Steve, and Steve will actually talk in a little bit more detail about the free-to-play and some of the kind of things that you need to look at when you're entering this market, because really that is the market that you should be aiming for now.
Thank you. I've been given all the slides with all the numbers on and everything else because I've been given the boring ones. Yeah, as Ant was saying, when we got thrown in this free-to-play direction, this was just as it was all starting to happen. And we're saying free-to-play, assuming everyone understands that, but it's the idea that up till then, we make games, we sell them to people, that money we use to make more games, and it all makes sense. But free-to-play, suddenly, you spend lots of money and make a game, and then you release it for free. And then hopefully you make some money. And that was kind of our real worry, that we put this game out for free, what happens next? How does this work? And when it first got described to us, we just kind of looked in shock. And they said, in fact, the companies which are doing really well at free-to-play are making a game for free, putting it out, then spending lots and lots of money to buy users to play their game. And it was quite a worrying concept. But as we've just shown with our Wacky Rapids game, we still tried to make the game we wanted to make, which was a little cartoon racer, and then we've tried to integrate the way of spending money inside it. But just for some interest, I did a few, again, numbers breakdown of how many downloads you need to get to make money in this free-to-play space. So the top level line I've put in here is every 20 people which download the game, you need one person to actually spend some money, which is 5%. And some games do more than that, but most games do a hell of a lot less. Most games do like 1 or 2% of conversion. So we've gone for something at least in the middle to have some fairness there. So we're saying if you get 20 downloads, you're going to get your 69p. And if you get 1,000 downloads, you get £35. If you get 1 million downloads, then you start talking about serious money. You get almost £35,000. And if I went back to my first slide, I think we was indicating that's roughly what we feel you'd probably need to professionally run a studio with 2 people for a year. Then if you go up to 10 million downloads, then you get to £345,000. One of the slight issues here is once you've got that £345,000, Apple very kindly step in and say, we'll take 30% of that, which instantly takes it down substantially, more like 240,000. And I was saying before that the successful free-to-play games spend quite a lot of money on marketing, on promotion, all QA, all that kind of stuff. So typically you need to work with a publisher, or if you're working with a brand like we did with Paul Frank, then they obviously want to have their stake in it. So depending what the project is, the amount of revenue you get can vary wildly. But I've said you might get a 25% revenue share if it's a product where you've been paid some amount of money to do it. But for argument's sake, I've put 25% in. So that 10 million people now has gone down to £60,000. If you've got a 5-man development team and you do all the maths behind it, you end up with about £20,000 per year per person. So it's gone from what initially looked like it was amazing to substantially less. And the scary thing from our point of view with this is that if that 1 in 20 people who pay for the products in the game goes to 1 in 40, suddenly you're down to £10,000 a year. So it can very quickly tail off, which is kind of worrying. So it's not exactly a reality check, because there's lots and lots of games which are using this model and they're making millions of dollars every week. But certainly if anyone's considering going down this route, it's worth crunching a few numbers and working out exactly what you'd need to do in order for it to be financially viable. I think that's the kind of formal end of our talk. We're just going to do a rough conclusion of what we've done, which was we got jobs. From them jobs, we made a prototype. From that prototype, we got a publisher. We made a game. We managed to get a little bit of money, enough to go full-time on it. We used that money to invest, to make a prototype, to eventually get a free-to-play game. And we did this just as the free-to-play games were really kicking off. And as we had a little bit of experience in it and a prototype, we found companies like the people behind Paul Frank who said, we think you would be quite a good fit with our brand. So we've since worked with them. And that game launched about 2 weeks ago now. So that's pretty much up to where we are today. And that's gone from working in relatively comfortable jobs with not too much worry into initially working in a shed in Ant's back garden to slowly moving up, and we've now got a office in Chester City Centre with a couple of people which work for us, and we've got more work hopefully coming up. So at the moment things are looking quite good. So the kind of thing we're hoping that people might take out is, once you're in a position where you think you might be able to make a game, you don't necessarily have to leave the area and go to London or go to Canada or go anywhere else at all. If there's obviously lots of talent here from people in this room and elsewhere, then if you are able to team up, found a good group, start working on ideas together, push something together, then hopefully if this is something that's interesting to you, then you could potentially do that and start your own company up. Did you have anything extra, Ant? Or?
Yeah, just kind of consider what you're doing there in terms of the projects. And one thing that we were talking about earlier was the projects that we put out. We put all of our time and effort into them and try and make them the best that we possibly can. But we don't look at them and think we look at the worst case scenario. So we think this isn't going to make money. So we look at where the next project's coming from. So we're very realistic in that. And if it goes on and makes money, then fantastic. Then we can carry on building the company up even quicker than we anticipate. But we're literally looking to bank money, develop our own IP alongside other IP. And we know a lot of studios that have kind of spawned out of the ashes of various studios around us. If anybody knows anything about the Northwest, then there's quite a lot of studios that have gone under: Juiced, Sony, Bizarre, and various others. And so there's hundreds of people that have gone off and set their own things up, and they've just kind of got caught up in, there's money on the App Store, I'll go and make this game, and thinking that it's going to make them some money. People need to think a bit differently and do their best to make the best game that they really want to make, but be realistic about it, because look at the store, look at the top of the charts, look through the top 50 on the paid and the free, and just have a reality check about it, really. I don't want to scare you off, but if you've got a job, don't throw it away. Take the money and develop something in your spare time and that kind of thing.
Well, if anyone's got any questions, then they can either fire them now, or if not, we're going to be around about sharing beers with some of you, I hope, so you can fire them later as well, if there's nothing now.
Can I just ask about the publisher? What kind of value you felt they added, and what kind of money they offer for games?
Well,
are you able to pick up the questions, or do you need us to repeat them?
Just kind of refer to them in your answer, I guess.
Okay. The question was, what was the value the publisher gave us? Well, obviously monetary initially, so we could quit and do this full time. But also, a big publisher like that, they have a lot of connections. And through those connections as well, you gain connections. So as a small indie outfit, we gain connections at Apple and various other places. They were probably quite pivotal in securing the Game of the Week feature and so on. I think the game obviously went quite some way to doing that. It was quirky, it was different, there was nothing like it at the time. So again, that's something to take note. Do something a bit different. Look at ways that you can create something that will stand out, a different visual style, and probably that kind of thing is what you're going to have to look at now, because I think lots of things have been done.
And also pushed it in China, Korea, which are hard markets to get into unless you know the right places and can speak the lingo. They also took the game to lots of the big conferences in America. A lot of the conferences cost thousands of pounds for a ticket, plus for flights, plus everything else. So if you try to do it yourself, you can get some really good connections from doing that, but it can cost a lot of money. I think long term, ideally, I think developers wouldn't need to use publishers, but certainly when you're starting it, it's very hard to generate the publicity you need to be financially successful. So although you give them a percentage, it's kind of that idea that it's a percentage of a big pie rather than getting all of it but not really getting anywhere.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, they curate the game and so. And we have great tools in house that Steve's created as well. So we have lots of great tool sets to actually run through the game and so on. So. That helps, and we try and get our machines to do our jobs for us in a lot of cases. So if you're doing your own tech, then you obviously try and consider that kind of stuff. So we have our own build systems, and we're actually looking. We don't even work on the Mac. We work on PC. We hate the blooming Mac. It's a nightmare. So we're actually buying a Mac machine soon that will just churn out and get all the latest code and data, and it'll kick out a build. It'll email us, and we'll just put it on our device. It saves us a lot of effort. But we look at we look at all these ways to save ourselves money. Because ultimately we want to sit there and make our own IP. We look at ways that we can get into that kind of position, and by working with publishers and working on IP, that helps us balance that out. So we work on our own stuff and do their stuff. So we're doing some fun stuff at the moment. We're trying to evolve a zombie kind of platformer at the moment. So it's a bit fun, just blasting stuff and shooting stuff. Whereas before we've just been making fun, very arcadey, kind of family-based games. We want to shoot some stuff and smash some stuff up now. So, anything else? Anybody?
What's your average? I mean, I know it'll vary depending on the complexity of the game. But what's your average cycle time for a game? Is it about a year, or is it?
6 months, probably. Yeah. I mean,
we hear lots of different things for that. Some people swear that if you can't do it in 3 months, then you're doomed, and other people say a year, and I think it does vary a little bit. And I think if you give yourself any time limit, we know people which have made a game in a week, and it's relatively small, but if you say I've got that long, I'm going to realistically make something in that time, it's fine. The problem is if you try to make a 2-month game in a week or a 2-year game in 6 months, but for us, we feel in 6 months we can make a game which we're happy with. Last one we showed, Swashbuckler, which is this big kind of pirate adventure over a massive world. That was 6 months, but it was, in real terms, if we slept properly and other such things, it'd probably be more like 9 months. So I think.
I mean, we work every day, like 8:30 till 6:30, 7 o'clock, and then longer when we're pushing the game out. I mean, we work Saturdays as well and Sundays sometimes. So we put the time in. People in the company get paid way more than we get paid, but that's what we do because we think hopefully we're not going to be deluded, and our company will close in a year or so, and longer than that because we've got enough to survive for longer than that. But we don't want to get to that point where it's gone. Well, actually, we paid these people a hell of a lot more than we paid ourselves. But that's the investment that we're putting into the company, that we're hoping to grow it, and it's all about longevity. Keeping it going. I mean, if you read around, Rovio didn't just make Angry Birds, they made 50 games. And there's lots of studios like that. And we believe exactly the same. You need to keep making games and keep learning. It's all about that process of putting something out there and taking something back from it and improving the next one. But staying on top of it as well and looking forwards and looking at what might be next. I mean, the connected TVs and stuff like that, what's going to happen there. So yeah, it's being aware of these things and trying to move into spaces quickly and being adaptable. Sure.
So just go back to the numbers. What are the attractions to the free-to-pay one? It kind of economically looks like suicide.
Yeah, I think.
I get it for your first game because you want the experience of getting a foot in the door and you've got credibility there, but the in-app purchases are going to be marginal.
It is scary.
The pay model is much more attractive.
Well, if you look at the top 50 grossing games on both iPhone and Android, 48 out of 50, 49 out of 50 are free-to-play games, and the attraction is that if it's a free game, you've got the potential to get a huge install base, and if you do get that huge install base, then you can really generate large numbers per day of people investing in the game. So the big companies are going down that route, and what it ultimately means is big companies are investing big budgets to make really good games, and they're making them for free. So if you then make a paid game, which isn't as good, it's quite a hard sell to the end user. The end user says, I can either pay 70p, which isn't a lot, but still pay money for this game developed by a team of 6 people for 6 months, or I can play this thing which has been made by a huge studio and have spent millions on it. And for the end user, they will quite often go for that free game. So I think a lot of people, ourselves included, feel like we are getting forced a little bit into it, but at the same time,
it's interesting for us. I mean, as developers, and I don't speak for everybody in the room, but typically anybody that's involved in games wants to look at new and interesting things and wants to get involved and see what's going to happen next. And it's certainly interesting. And we find it very interesting trying to evolve the kind of games that we do into that kind of model and see if we can make a success of it.
How much does that CSR game make? Do you remember? That might be of interest.
I can't remember now, but there's certainly studios that have come out, and there's one studio that's got the #1 in the top grossing, and another couple of games in the top grossing chart, and they're making $500,000 a day. So there's crazy amounts of money. And you look on the chart, and people might just think Angry Birds is the biggest game out there. Well, look at the top grossing; it's not. It sells a lot, but it certainly doesn't make the kind of money that some of these other games make.
I should just
and it's not all about money. Don't get me wrong. But you ultimately need a certain amount of money to make the games that you want to make.
I'd just point out as well those figures which I put up, which you was referring to. Although they were big download numbers, the kind of million downloads or so, if you've got a good free-to-play game, you're hoping to get them sort of numbers a day. So although those numbers are quite low in terms of money you're getting back, if you get that number of users, it's £300,000 a day or something. So it's there's lots of money there if you get it right. It's just
it all just kind of it goes hand in hand. So once you get into that chart position, if your game's good enough, it's got the right features, people start talking about it, it starts kind of carrying itself. And then there's various mechanisms to help keep it up there. So you can use things like Urban Airship, which will ping users that haven't played the game for a certain amount of time. And you probably experienced some of this stuff with the push notifications. They're trying to entice you back into the game. So these mechanisms, like Urban Airship, you can use that to look at which players haven't played it for a period of time, so you can direct your marketing. You can use user acquisition methods to acquire a certain amount of users. Now, this costs you money, and as an indie studio, you're probably not going to be able to do it, but the big studios do it, and they're acquiring users to get into the game and ultimately push their game up the charts and keep it up there. And that's how they're making all their money. And certainly a year ago, we were like, wow, that sounds pretty nasty. Just make the good game. Once you make the good game, hopefully it'll carry itself.
Are you finding that that's what makes you more attractive to a publisher as well? I mean, that's been my recent experience, that every publisher we've gone to has asked us what are you doing in terms of free to play with this title. They're not really interested in anything that's just a premium model anyway. No,
they're not. I mean, literally a year ago, a little bit more than a year ago, it was last summer, every publisher wanted free to play. And I think we were quite fortunate. I remember stood outside Traveller's Tales, and me and Steve were talking about leaving at the time, and we had the money from the publisher, and we were presented with this decision to make. Our boss said we had to make this decision, leave or stay. And we said it's now or never. We're never going to get this opportunity again. So we left, and a few months later, then it's all looking at the free to play. And I think if we were in the industry still doing the console stuff, I don't think we would have ever considered it, and we probably would have never have broken free of the shackles and got out of there. But that's where they want to spend the money. And Wacky Rapids, literally, it was a 2-page pitch document, and we looked around. There's companies that have development funds. They don't advertise it so freely now, but they are out there, and there's quite a number of them. And they will put money into games that they think will make money. You have to present to them a model in your game to go, this is how it's going to make its money in the free-to-play
It's almost like
market.
they ignore the game, don't they? It's like, so this is my amazing game, but like, well, don't care about that. Like, keep going. Where's the bit where you sell stuff to people in the shop? And it's quite disheartening when you've got this great idea and they're just flicking through the pages. Where is it? The shop. But if that's where the money is, then you kind of cater your document for that kind of audience, and
that's the way it is, and you've got to adapt that really. But as I say, make the games that you want to make, but think about how you're going to adapt that model.
I'd just like to say something. I played Kami Retro on Android, and it has references to Gaijin's work, and it's kind of like, it's quite hardcore. It's a very difficult game. It has all of the kind of hardcore game things, And I just wonder, I'm coming from a design perspective, the compromises that one has to make as a designer to kind of build in those monetization models. How do you feel about that? Because I'm kind of slightly disturbed by that. We all have to put stuff on the table, we need food,
I mean, Kami Retro was designed as a premium game, and you know, it was never designed with that in mind. And yeah, we came off the back of that, and then we started looking at this model, and it certainly makes it more difficult. You know, when we presented this idea to Saban about the Portfront platform, we presented it and said you could either make a premium game or a freemium game. And we suggested a few things, and this was maybe 5 months after pitching Wacky Rapids, and we'd almost finished it. And yeah, they wanted to go down the freemium route, and we gave them a design document. It didn't have that much in there on the freemium side of stuff, and yeah, we certainly throughout the whole project trying to work out how the hell we were going to make this platform and make money. It was always a massive concern of ours because they're the kind of games that we wanted to make, but we found that interesting as well. We had various discussions throughout the whole project in terms of, sometimes quite heated in terms of like, how the hell are we going to turn, you know, that classic Mario style game into something that can, you know, where you can buy various items to progress through the level in different ways.
We should say the flip side as well, and this is an argument which someone once gave me, was if you're a designer, and you might not completely agree, but the two things which you should probably care about is making a really good game and actually designing it well. And the second thing is people playing it, and they're the two most important things. And although the design maybe you have to compromise, in terms of getting people to see it, you'll get far more people seeing your game if it's free to play because it's free. So you're getting a huge number of people being happy, playing your game. So there's some amount of weight that maybe you have to compromise on design, maybe you don't, but in return, instead of getting 10,000 people, you might get 10 million people. So that was his argument for it, and I thought maybe my design side feels slightly more, you know, devil kind of shoulder, and it's like, yes, okay, that's fine, I guess you can make some compromises. It
definitely opens your eyes as well, you know, in terms of analytics. We have analytics hooks for absolutely everything. Well, not everything, because we've missed a few things out, but you learn this when you put your game out there in terms of, you know, where people might be dropping off, and you have to put hooks in everywhere, because if you don't have them in all the right places, you won't know why people are not progressing through your game. So we have checkpoints in the game, and we're constantly looking at how far people are progressing, what they're buying in the shop, how they're getting pushed into the shop. One of the biggest ways of getting people in our game, anyway, certainly to buy things, is through incentivized facilities in the game. So we have a character called Bob in the game, and he is constantly talking to you in various ways, but we didn't want that to be too pushy. So we actually have him pop up in the bottom left-hand side with a little icon there, and you can carry on playing the game. But at various points in the game, he's popping up, and he's kind of giving you something to be aware of. Hey, you might want to buy a various item from him that will help you maybe find a particular star in the level or something like that. So yeah, again, something else you have to be aware of when you're making these kind of games is analytics, and trying to integrate them so you can gain useful information back as well, because you can get a lot of noise, and if you're not aware of what you're tracking and what's useful about it, then yeah, you'll just end up in a world of graphs and not knowing what you're looking at.
I think we're in a danger of overrunning now. Possibly.
Yes.
All right, just again, we'll have to wind that up. Thank you very much, guys. If you guys have got any more questions for them, Sam will be on the phone.